Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Live here on Keystroke Medium. I'm Josh Hayes. That's Scott Moon, right over there.
There you go.
And welcome. It is Monday, January 17th, 2022. We're going to have our first roundtable of the year. Chuck's out doing some intern stuff. We've got him on very, very important intern stuff.
Deep cover intern
like
work.
Super duper deep cover intern work, and he'll be back next week. Let's see. Keith Taylor has the first comment of the day, so he gets the Keystroke Medium golf clap of appreciation. Thank you, Tom. What's up? Claire, I think that's Leo. Welcome. Rick, hi. How are you? Hope everybody's doing well. I had a crazy weekend, and I had about the best week ever that I've had in a long time. Writing.
You did. You passed me, and I was broken inside.
I'm still. Oh, now I'm behind. I see. I haven't updated my words yet.
But you don't update your words to the end of the day. I literally finished typing them and put the latest update on the thing. I have 200 words.
We're having a really, really awesome showing of the.
It's good.
Keystro Rimo sheet. I know it's kind of hard to see there because of the zoom. But if you make it full screen, you can see Guy Anthony DeMarco's leading at 51,000 words.
It's true.
Rick Partlow's bringing up second with Nathan Heisted in third, Rachel Ackas in fourth, and J.R. Hanley's in fifth.
I like it how at the top people are green, but as you get lower on the leaderboard, it's like you're burning in hell down there.
Yeah. It's not a competition. You're not burning in hell.
It's not a competition. You're not eternally damned for not getting any words in.
But I did do that on purpose. Also, the color by the day, January, where it says days remaining, that color is slowly going red too. If you've been paying attention to the spreadsheet, it started out green.
What?
It's yellow now, and it's slowly ticking down to red. And
I'm looking right now.
You better get your words in as it goes down. But as you can see, I'm 17 days because I wrote
amazing.
Today, at least 17 days consistent writing already this year. When I think that puts me up to like 25 or so, like total for the last 25 days written consistently. And so if you're not on the Keystro Rimo spreadsheet and you would like to participate, it's really fun. As you can see, some people are writing more words than others, and that's okay because it's not a competition. It's literally just having a small amount of accountability and knowing that other people are grinding it out just as much as you are.
Just about building a habit. We're trying to build habits. Everybody build a good habit. Build that process.
So if you're wanting to get, look at that. I like that. I like that much better than this other view. That's nice.
That's kind of crazy.
Playing around with.
We're learning all kinds of stuff here.
If you'd like to get in on the spreadsheet, shoot me a PM on Facebook or email me, and we can get you added, and you too can start jotting down your words. So let's see. Get rid of that. Okay. Let's talk about our actual updates. Scott?
Actual update number 1. Go.
Yes, go.
All right. So I've been writing a ton. I got back my edits, as I said last time, for Blue Sun Armada 3. I've gone through them I've kind of changed my process. I used to just address all of the corrections, then all of the comments, and then give it a read through. But this time I went through it chronologically, which is a little bit slower on the front end, but I like the process better because I was more informed when I got to each of the comments with my own story. I was like, okay, that's what I did. That's what I did here. And I had a lot more confidence. That was really good going through that. Sent it off to a beta reader or so and got those back, got a few more things. I did run it through Pro Writing Aid and perfect it just to kind of see. And I caught like 3 things like, oh, that word's the wrong homonym or whatever here and there. But so hopefully it's pretty clean. I'm looking forward to getting that out and published. And then once I got the edits done, I started really working on Reaper 13, which is, 13th book in the series. Sometimes you get scared. It's like walking a tight wire. And so you got to go back and read like all the books to make sure you haven't missed something. So that's been a challenge this week. but I'm still really enjoying it. Getting lots of great feedback on Reaper. I've had to write a short story for a promotion that's coming out very soon with a very special audiobook, audio short. Can't talk about it yet, but it's going to be amazing. And then so last night I wrote some promotional materials, put it that way, and it was a freaking blast because I was writing in X37's voice. And
nice.
I just went, I didn't know exactly what Jeff wanted, but I said, how's this? And he goes, oh yeah, you knocked that out of the park. I was like, good, because I was a little nervous because I was just about as crazy as my characters when I wrote that. So that was exciting. Been taking the kids around. My youngest one wants to play the guitar. I've been giving him lessons. That's fun. He actually practiced. It's crazy. I gave him a metronome and said, you got to practice with this metronome. And he's 11 and he did it. I'm like, wow,
Nice.
that's, I never had anybody I've tried to teach anything say, oh, I'd love to try out the metronome. That's pretty brutal. But now he's decided for some reason he wants to play the violin. So we're looking at violins, which I think would be great. But if anybody's had a string player practicing in their home, some challenges. So
my dad used to play the violin. I think he still has like his original violin from like high school or something tucked away.
It's one of the most challenging instruments to play musically because you have to hear the notes. There's no frets or keys to press that give you a certain result. It's like you either hear it or you're all screwed up. So
True.
Very excited about that. My mom wasn't able to come for a visit. We're still trying to sell the house. Just lots of things. And I'm going back to work because I wasn't too sick to go back to work now. So that's good.
Oh, you just have to, you got to ham it up a little bit.
Well, yeah, I have to be in quarantine. The thing is I did take a COVID test because work required me to, and I was negative, but you have the slightest cough when you're out in public. You feel like everybody's looking at you like, oh my God, look at that guy.
Yeah.
He's irresponsibly contaminating my children. He's trying to kill us.
And
nobody ever says that.
It's like that old Bill Cosby routine from way, way, way back in the day. And he's talking about hoof and mouth and killing all the cows because they have hoof and mouth. And one of the cows they're running along and he's like, what's hoof and mouth? And they see that foam around your mouth. And they're like, yeah, like that's hoof and mouth. You got to put them down. And so now every time somebody coughs, like out in public, you're like, oh, he's got it. Put him down.
Put him down. Get him out of here. Yeah. So, good times. Let's see. Yeah, that's my update. So basically, in summary, writing, editing, going to work, managing the family.
Same old.
Try not to be a jerk all the time. That's me.
Kayleen says she got 2,900 words today.
Sweet.
That's amazing. Leo says he's getting perfected. I always forget which one I have, either Pro Writing Aid or Perfected, and then I always forget to use it. Like I think about it later. I'm like, I should have used it.
If you're using a professional editor, it's not really that necessary, but I kind of like to do it. So one of my goals for this year was to, of course, up the craft. And so the reason I go through it is I'll go through the grammar suggestions and read the explanations because most of my grammar is intuitive. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But I'll like, okay, they'll be like, you got a comma between two dependent clauses or independent clauses or whatever. So it's interesting, just trying to learn.
I have no idea because I just guess. Like, does that look like it needs a comma there? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then Perfected is more about consistency. So Perfected will go through and like say, okay, you capitalized this phrase 89 times, but 3 times you didn't.
Right. And
so you can kind of get some of those things out of the way.
Leo says I've got dad jokes of valor, which is also true. It's very true. I saw, Trucker Charlie's in North Carolina today. Welcome, Charlie, to the show. Appreciate you stopping by and hanging out with us on your travels. Walt is here. Lou is here. Welcome. Let's see. What have I been up to this week? I have reached, I think, 55,000 words in Weaponized 1. And I'm about 3/4 of the way done with a short story with Amy Duboff. I've got to read. She finished hers, so I've got to read her draft and then sync some stuff up. with her story in mine, and then I did a lot of plot expansion on my fantasy series that I'm working out, which kind of was the starting point for our conversation today, but we'll get to that in a minute. I've been doing really well. I've been getting up early, about 5 o'clock every day, and pounding out a couple thousand words before the family gets up. And
That's the key, man.
It's I have just realized that's my sweet spot. Whether or not I like getting up in the morning or not, which I don't, I would much rather sleep in. I'd much rather stay up late and then sleep in. But I know that I cannot get the words if I don't get up. And strangely enough, my brain works the most, or the most accurately in the writing space when it's like half awake. Because I get up and I like have a cup of coffee and I'm sitting there and then I start typing words. I'm like, oh, this works.
Well,
like in the middle of the day when I'm wide awake, I'm looking at the screen going, I'm dumb. I don't know what to.
Well, once you get woken up, the whole monkey brain moves in because you have all that energy. But when you're half asleep, you don't have enough horsepower to run 18 different thought streams.
Yeah.
You have too much input by the end of the night, and you can be more creative in some ways because of that, but also much easier to be distracted when you have a full day's worth of thoughts running around and you're running amok, as it were, in your head.
Yeah. Running all crazy. So I'm going to keep that up. I'm going to keep getting up early and knocking out the words. And let's see, we had a lot of positive feedback and submissions already on the flash fiction competition. We announced it on the 10th. I think it was after last week's show, and already have 4 or 5 stories submitted. A lot of interest where people are writing. I've had a couple people reach out and say they're sending them to edits and whatnot, which is awesome. I think it's really cool that people are kind of jumping on the bandwagon and submitting stories. A lot of people liked the knight in shining armor and the collection of photos. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's the first annual or the first quarterly Keystroke Medium Flash Fiction competition. We started it this quarter. Stolen from Scott McGlasson and the Space Opera Writers Group. There are well, here I can show you the 5 pictures ish. There's the first one, which is Scott McGlasson picked. I thought this one was pretty sweet. Just the nature of the broken down mech was kind of cool. This mysterious Gothic tower. This one a lot of people are really intrigued by is the medieval type burning church. And then Rhinoceros with some Space Marines, which I mean, honestly, how can you not have that in your lineup? It's a rhinoceros.
It's a unicorn rhinoceros.
If somebody turns in a unicorn story, I'm definitely blaming you.
Oh, yeah. I take full responsibility for propagating the unicorn lore.
Yeah. So anyway, the submissions are open. You can submit all the way through March 7th. Only 1 story per author. Otherwise, I think we would get just a enormous flood of stories coming in.
We already got a unicorn of valor.
Oh, nice. Oh, where'd it go? There it is. Very nice. Very, very well done. Very well done. So yeah, good times.
I don't know if StreamYard has changed, but I'm pretty sure both of us can add people to the thing because I've been able to do that even when I'm not the person who opened the show, which is kind of weird.
Look at you.
Here, let me just find something that's worthy and I'll put it in there, test it out.
So we're going to talk a little bit about story planning today, a little bit about plotting, a little bit about pantsing, kind of an all-inclusive story conversation today. I can't remember who was talking about it last week, but somebody was talking about plotting. And I have been off and on plotting and planning. There we go. There, you did it.
Yeah, I did it. I
Look at
feel
that.
like very accomplished.
Very super excellent podcast.
Nothing can
host.
stop me now.
So you just take it off now. Okay, so talking about planning and plotting a story, I know there's usually a gang fight in the streets with switchblades and batons over whether or not you're
West Side Story over out.
a planner or a plotter or an architect and a gardener, depending on who you talk to. And I think that some of the arguments for not plotting are valid, but also when I used to think about outlines and plotting, I used to think about the way that they taught you how to outline in school, where you have like the one heading and then A, B, C, and then it's just gonna kind of formal. I only use that, like the outlines ability in Word
Like
or
the formal
Scrivener.
outlining. Yeah.
I use it just to easily break up the writing. I don't actually use it. I don't actually use it the way that it's supposed to be used because I have big paragraphs on some of that stuff. But so when I outline, I a lot of times have a lot of things that I like you said. It's just Stephen King's thing that getting the story out in 90 days or the story isn't going to get out.
Yes.
And I say all the time, I didn't plot the outline, I pantsed the outline. So I'm kind of a hybrid in that.
Yeah.
But I think every outliner is a hybrid. And like Thomas's.
Yeah, it's a good one. You put that one.
The outline is a really thin first draft, and it's true. There are some, like I'm in my novel Weaponized that I'm working on right now. I knew that there was a scene where they were going to have to sneak out of this jail type enclosure that they're being kept in,
because there's a unicorn rhinoceros keeping them from getting
yes,
out.
100%.
No spoilers.
They have to sneak past the unicorn rhinoceros. But as I'm going through the story, I'm realizing that I want to put different things in it, like security bots and force fields and sensors and all this stuff.
Rhinoceri.
Right, rhinoceri, and that kind of stuff isn't in the outline. It's nowhere there. And so I know, Scott, you mentioned right before we started recording that you don't want to go too heavy on the outline because then you miss out on some of the magic of the writing, and maybe the writing could take you someplace else. And that's what I think. It really depends on the level at which you outline.
I'm kind of like inconsistent with it. Sometimes I love the outlining. Because really it really is thinking very deeply about your story before you go all in on it. So, I mean, you can outline it in lots of different ways. You can use the snowflake method. You can do the Sean Coyne thing. You can do the Larry Brooks thing. You can do all kinds of different hybrids and things like that. But so I've had times, the first time I ever outlined an entire book, I was looking at the snowflake method and I made a spreadsheet, and every line on the spreadsheet was a scene. I think you needed 119 scenes according to this formula. And I did this whole snowflake thing, but I outlined that whole book in one day. And actually I outlined all of Reaper 1 in one day. It took me 6 hours. And then of course there was some changes to it, and it was very, very useful. But like I said, sometimes I love the outline, and sometimes it saps my will to write sometimes. If it's too detailed.
So how does that translate into, like, I mean, you're kind of known for slamming words down, like sometimes 4,000 or 5,000 words at a time. Do you have to have the outline to steer your words in the right direction, so to speak, and then go from there?
Yeah, I need to know certain milestones or goalposts I need to hit on the way, certain stops along the way, like where your first plot point is, where the midpoint is, where you're going to have big changes, points of no return, things like that. And for me, what happens is when I'm pantsing or doing the first draft of the outline, because actually I'll do several drafts in outline sometimes, is I'll write very big paragraphs that talk about so-and-so did this, and then they do that, and they find this thing, and they discuss this principle, and they learn that such and such. Well, when I go back to write that on that outline, it's just I start to glaze over. I can't read to the end of the paragraph. And so what I have to do is it's like it's like reading a math textbook, even though I wrote it and I was really excited when I did it. So what I have to do generally, and I have to be fresh, like we talked about in the morning, because today I ran out of freshness. And so I'm looking at my outline and I'm very fatigued and I can't break it apart, but I basically have to re-outline the beat and I have to break it out into smaller chunks.
Yeah.
It has to be like, for me, a beat is like one sentence, like, they obtain anti-grav so that they can get onto the ship
Right.
and attack it. And then the next thing might be they realize they left Joe behind, or something. If those are all together, then
freaking Joe,
I get overwhelmed. Right. Yeah. So that's some of my, I don't really have a lot of useful outlining advice. I just can talk about my struggles sometimes, I guess.
Well, I don't know that we necessarily are looking for advice, just kind of talking about the process, like individual process. I know that like a lot of people here are talking, like Dean says, he's differentiating between the planning phase and the outline phase, which
that's a good point.
I kind of combine the two constantly until the outline is done. Just yesterday, this is gonna sound really bad. We were in church and everybody's like, it's during the worship time of church and everybody's singing and having a good time. And I had a idea for the story that I was working on outlining. And so I pulled out my phone and immediately wrote down these notes. I actually battled with myself for several minutes because I was like, I can remember it. I'll just remember it. Like I'm standing there and I'm like just chilling and I'm like, I'll just remember it until we sit down. And then I'll pull out my phone and make the notes. But then I was like, no, because I'll definitely forget. I know how my mind works. I will forget because I'll immediately start thinking about something else. And so I immediately pulled out my phone and wrote it down. So I have outlined on her particular timeline 45 or 46 chapters. Not 46. 26 chapters. And this thought that I had yesterday will actually expand that by a couple if it works. And so it's always until I actually finish and start writing, I am usually in a multifaceted planning / plotting deal. Well,
Yes.
hell, even with Weaponized, I come up with different ideas and it kind of changes where my outline goes. I outlined the entire book in Plottr and then exported it out to Scrivener. And I've been going through when I first started doing was dictation this summer and printing out one of the sections from Plottr and then voice dictating the chapter.
I remember we talked about that.
Which I want to get back into doing because I was doing a whole lot of words. But it's interesting now that I've got about right past the halfway mark and I'm adding in chapters that I weren't in the original outline to make things happen in the book that I want to have happen. And so like I write the outline and usually I'll get to the end point and know exactly where it's going. But there's a lot of times it changes. I mean, I think Edge of Valor, the outline for Edge of Valor changed like 18 times in the middle of in the writing of it.
Well, two things that are really common for me is I have a weird light on my face. I'm not sure where that's coming from.
Oh, it's a reflection of something.
I know. It's like I'm being laser beamed. Anyway, it's not a rare traveling skin disease in my face. It's just my weird lighting here. Well, two things that happen. The most common problems I have when I outline is I'll do a brilliant outline. I will love it. I will have fun writing the outline. And I'm cruising along and I'm on like chapter, say 11, and I'll get to so-and-so does this. And I'm like, yeah, that already happened in chapter 8 because I organically came to that point much earlier. Well, that throws everything off because what goes in chapter 11 now? This changes everything. And so now all my stuff is out of whack. And the other thing I do is I will write by my outline and I'll have like 3 beats. I usually start with 3 to 5 beats because it's just like a book. You have sections. You get
Right.
your kind of your inciting, your midpoint, your question or challenge, whatever you want to call it. But I'll be like halfway through my beats for that chapter, and the chapter will be like 6,500 words long, and I'm aiming for 2,000 to 3,000. So now I have to break that whole. I have to find places, and I have to find good ending points for the chapter that have like a question or something that pushes the action forward into the next chapter. That's not too cliffhangery and whatnot. And so I do all this work, and now I have this one chapter outlined, but it's actually 3 or 4 chapters.
Right.
And so there's weird kinds of drift. And then I usually wind up having to re-outline the rest of the book. And that's why sometimes I don't even outline the second half of the book in very much detail, because I know it's going to be all jacked up.
Well, a lot of times my outlined chapters, like what you're saying, sometimes they'll become multiple chapters,
Right?
But then other times
Like,
multiple outline chapters will become one chapter.
I've had to go the other way,
mash everything into it.
Well, these 3 beats are done, and I've only written 800 words. So apparently that those concepts didn't take as much attention as I thought they would when I was writing the outline. But usually it's the other way around. Usually when I start expanding my outline beats, they get way more detailed.
Harold says, Josh, loved your Valor series. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Scott loved your Shorty series. Shorty's amazing. If you haven't picked up Shorty yet.
Favorite. I don't. It's a sad, weird occurrence in the universe that I'm not writing on Shorty a lot more than I would be.
Wish we got more solo stuff from you two fellas. I've got solo stuff on the way, brother. Weaponized is well in progress. And Scott's got a shit ton of stuff.
I got some really cool solo stuff that I really want to share. Not all of it is sci-fi. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's my own weird quirkiness. It's like, oh, there's an idea. I should make that a novel.
Yeah.
I have time to write 5 more at the same time. Why not?
Because we have a distinct lack of ideas.
Yeah.
Rick says he can't write solo stuff because it belongs to Disney. Hardy har.
Ba-dum-bum.
Dean says, my planning phase is an idea cloud. Anything goes, no structure, no judgment of ideas. The goal is to get a grip of the characters, genre, setting, and my story goal as a storyteller. Look, before we talk about the contents of this comment, can we just say that I read the entire thing perfectly?
Good job.
Perfectly. Thank you.
That's almost as good as Rick Bartlett's dad joke.
You know what? It's interesting because I like the planning phase is an idea cloud, and I've done this too. Just recently, handwriting notes in a notebook, and even on the computer, I'll type out, okay, I have to do this, but what am I wanting to do with this particular scene? Like, how do I do this? How do I do that? And then I just write down a whole bunch of ideas. And man, I wish I could remember. I was writing the end of Lorelei's arc for the first book of the Aspect War, and at the end of her arc, which is the end of book 1, it's not a happy arc, and I was trying to get from one point to the other point and have like a kind of a satisfying end there. And so I just wrote down, how do I end this? And then I just started writing ideas down. I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. And I think I had 7 or 8 ideas written down in my notebook before I combined 2 and deleted the rest of them. And they worked. Well, I don't know if they work great or not, but they worked out for what I was trying to do.
They worked for you. Now the thing is, will it work for everybody else?
Yeah.
That's the way that's every thing you write as a writer. This really works for me. I hope it does for everybody else.
Well, it's interesting because I'm not ending the book on a cliffhanger. I mean, the book is ending with not there is resolution in the first book in that you learn some things that you didn't know, but the story is obviously continuing. And it's kind of odd, with especially with epic fantasy, it's a lot of book, and then you may or may not have a positive conclusion at the end of the first couple of books. And hell, when you talk about like Joe Abercrombie, you never have a good resolution. Like everybody just dies.
No, it's more like you've seen a good outcome at like a scenic overlook, like you're driving through Colorado, and you pull over and you look, that's beautiful, and then you keep on driving.
Right.
That's like where the happiness is in a Joe Abercrombie book. Like,
Yeah.
I think we could get to happiness. Nope, we're going the other way.
And you're like, no, it's right over there.
Yeah, we don't do that here apparently.
I think of the ending of a Game of Thrones, the first book, not Game of Thrones the series, but a Game of Thrones the book. And that book ends with Daenerys, spoiler alert, coming out of the fire with her dragons, right? And so it's not really it is a closed arc. She becomes the mother of dragons.
But you want more.
Well, it's a beginning, right? Like,
yeah,
it's the end of the book, but it's definitely a beginning for her. And so it's not a cliffhanger per se, because you know like if you would have ended it with her dying in the fire, that would have been a cliffhanger, or not revealing what happened in the fire. Just ended it with her in the fire.
Or going into the fire as she's walking into it.
Right.
That'd be a cliffhanger for sure.
So that's what I'm trying to figure out, how to end the first book without really I don't want to do a cliffhanger. And that was one of the conversations I had with Steve when I ended Edge of Valor, because the original Edge of Valor book ended on a cliffhanger. And Steve was like very adamant about not ending it on a cliffhanger. And so it took a couple days to figure out how to do it. And then actually the solution was super easy. It was just move the cliffhanger to the beginning of book 2, move the ending of book 1 to book 2, and then have a conclusion on book 1.
That's happened a lot, actually, where I write books and they come out too long, and I'm like, oh, the last 20,000 words of this book belong in the next book, and then you just make some adjustments, and then you got a head start on the next book. Sometimes that happens too.
Tom says, I do a sketch of what I want to accomplish in the story, then an outline. Then I write. If I dictate, I swear a lot during cleanup. Rick says, I plan prior to the synopsis, just a list of ideas, then the synopsis, then a bare bones outline, then I flesh out the outline. I mean, that's a lot of what I do too. And it's, I hesitate to call it the snowflake method because I don't want to label what you do, but I mean, the snowflake at its fundamental level, the snowflake is just a base idea, and then a list of ideas, and then a expanded idea, and then fleshing out all the different points.
Yeah. So for somebody, in theory, if somebody's unfamiliar with the snowflake method, it starts with a 1-sentence description of your story, and you expand that to a 5-sentence description, and so on. And the advantages are it makes you get really tight on what your story is about, and then expand it in a way that makes sense. So there are definitely some good things. I think the thing is once we've read enough books and written enough books, that all the writers here kind of do a lot of this stuff intuitively. Not labeling, well, now I'm going to move into phase 2 of the expansion of my synopsis.
Right.
Now we're developing the theme. Well, whatever.
Yeah. The theme. Yeah. Tom says, I'm doing an unauthorized crossover of the Valor novel in which JT wages war looking for the perfect cup of coffee. It's called Java of Valor. I love that book, and I can't wait to read it.
It's going to be the best one.
Leo says, I'm an outlier. I use the outline to keep the muse from pulling me into her world. Then I pants it all day. True.
I honestly, and I will do this in the future, I kind of do it a little bit already, but what I think would be a really smart way to write a book is outline the shit out of it, and then just put the outline in a drawer and write the book. Because you would have wrestled with all of the ideas and concepts and got really serious and picked what your story is actually about, and then write with complete freedom. And then if you wanted to go back, you could, but I probably wouldn't. Just take the outline and just then put it aside and write the book. Don't even look at the outline, because it should be pretty deep in your subconscious by the time you spend the time to do a complete outline.
Yeah. The only I could try to do that, but my thing is like I write it down and then I don't remember it. Like I write it down and I'm like, okay, I had a good idea. It's like writing about the aspect war and outlining all that stuff. And while I'm doing the outline, I'm also world building and developing culture and developing magic systems and all this stuff like that. So I have all of that stuff just written down randomly in pages. And going back and looking at it, I'm like, okay, this is this and this is that. I know the general story in my head, but how I get from point A to point B and how the world affects, it's like this idea that I had yesterday in church, that will affect the layout of the story, and if I do that, it affects kind of other things in the story too. So I've got to figure out how that works. Mumble of valor. True. You know what? I actually like outlining a lot more than I like actually writing the story. If I've said it before, if I could just outline stories, that would be me. I could do that all day long because I like the breaking down of ideas and then smashing through. Like so I took the handwritten notes that I had for Aspect War on Lorelai's arc and then transcribed them into Word this week. And after I listed out all the chapters, I got about 800 words just kind of blazing through the different scenes and writing down what I wanted to do with those scenes. And then I got to go through and write them all out. People do try to, that's true. People do try to sell outlines. It's like every other author, and then you have the people that are like, I've got an idea for your story or for a story, and like I've got way too many ideas. So I mean, I'd be interested to see.
Your idea is probably awesome. Please tell it to me in your new silent language.
Yes, exactly. You just, oh yeah, Guy says we should do another whiteboard story outline generation. That would be fun. Man, we did that. What was the Shorty song?
No, that was Dark Landing 7.
Dark Landing 7, yeah.
What's the name of Dark Landing 7? Man, I've written
so many things. It was the race one.
Yeah, it's the race one. I think it was Race to the Finish.
What Guy's talking about, he says you guys should do another whiteboard story outline / generation. A couple of years ago, this must have been, 3-4 years ago now, maybe.
It is sometime in 18, I think.
I have to see if I still have that whiteboard. I'm sure I do somewhere. But we had this big, huge whiteboard that we basically generated a short story. Well, it was a novella from start to finish, and kind of worked out several ideas on and recorded while we were doing it, and kind of talked through different things. And that was really fun. We should definitely do that again.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. Because I had, kind of where I wanted to go, but after we worked through it, it was definitely a far superior product. I mean, it was probably one of the best ones.
I always like doing
in the Dark Landing.
I like doing my outlining, my initial outlining and generation by hand, pen and paper. In that case, it was whiteboard and dry erase marker. But I think for some reason, for me, ideas flow a little bit easier when I'm not typing them into a word processor like Word or Scrivener. And then also they're much more easily discarded when they're handwritten. I think, you have the marriage to the plot or the marriage to the outline. When you write it down and it becomes a thing, then you can't change it, like subconsciously, right? Like you can't change what you've written on the computer. And I do, but I kind of battle a little bit against it. Like it makes it real when I type it into the computer. And so if I write it on paper, it doesn't make it real. It's just kind of in the aether there. And it's a lot easier to be flexible with the thoughts on paper. That's just me though.
I like it. I mean, I think all of the different mediums give you a different connection to the story.
I like how mediums. I like how you
slip that in there.
That.
Yeah. Because I get on these kicks where I'm going to dictate and get really productive, and I'll do really well. But then some days I don't feel like talking. I feel like typing.
Yep.
And I would definitely, long time ago, way pre KDP Amazon, I had a couple of times where I hand wrote the entire book and then I typed it in, under the idea that each variation would be, a chance for revision and development and all that. But I also played the guitar about 6 hours a day back then too. So I had really bad tendonitis and probably carpal tunnel or at least flirting with it at the time.
And it probably take a lot longer to handwrite
It takes forever.
yeah.
It's not efficient at all. But handwriting an outline, handwriting ideas, making doodles and story things, definitely a good way to get some unique thoughts and stuff out there.
Tom says they did that in a Deep Space Nine documentary, and now I wish they'd shoot the movie. Only the Nog actor died a couple of years ago, and he was critical to the first scene. I really enjoyed Deep Space Nine. I'll have to. Is that what's the name of that documentary, Tom? I'd like to watch it. Dean says, anyone ever dictate the initial story spark? I've done that a few times and never actually wrote those stories. I do that sometimes with scenes. I don't know that I've ever done it with an actual story, like from beginning to end, or like first thoughts on a story, but I've definitely done it with scenes.
I've done it a lot. I'm looking right now, see if I can find an example in my, because usually that's one of the best uses for the Dragon Anywhere is just going, I'm going to get this idea, because you can get because you can get the idea as fast as you can think, which is great for initial ideas. Looking through my thousands of untitled documents.
What We Left Behind is the name of the documentary, and it's on Amazon right now, free on IMDb TV. Interesting. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, I've done it. I did it the other day, and I don't have Dragon Anywhere. I've just got a digital voice recorder, and I did that where I knew that I needed some scenes when I was just kind of like brainstorming in my mind, driving up to Claflin to work, and I had initial sparks of ideas, and I just started talking those out.
I think for this stuff like this, I think like Notepad and lots of other things give you enough dictation ability.
Guy says he's got a smart board, lots of space to. Oh yeah. I have, my whiteboard is enormous. If I still have it, which I don't know that.
I don't mean to brag.
Yeah. I don't know that it made it here in the move, but my whiteboard's like, I don't know. It's like 5.5 feet or 6 feet wide, and I don't know, 4 or 5 feet tall. It's pretty big. Guy says he hears the puppy unicorn of doom. It's true. Let's see. Nice to print. Oh, I see what you're saying. And then he's saying, great to have a Xerox subsidy from your employer. I actually bought a printer so I could print out drafts of chapters and then read them because I have a really hard time not editing when I'm reading. Especially if I'm reading it on a computer, I'll just automatically start editing. But if I print the chapter out and read it on paper, well, first it gets my eyes off the screen, and my eyes are on the screen way too much as it is.
That's true.
But then I can just make pen and ink changes, and I can get through the reading a lot faster. Actually, I just found I was cleaning my office the other day, and a long time ago, several months back, I got a manuscript back in the mail that I thought was a short story that I had sent to Chris Kennedy for one of his anthologies, and it was the editing notes on it. And so I didn't even look at it. I just kind of set it aside because the story had already been edited and done. But then when I was cleaning my office several weeks ago, I realized that it wasn't. It was the sample chapters that I sent Tony for my fantasy stuff, and it was edits from Tony.
Wow.
And I didn't send her the printed format. I sent her the e-copy, so she printed it out and edited it by hand
and wrote on it old school. Nice.
Yeah. And looked through those notes, and they were really good edits. She definitely knows what she's doing. But it was the first time. I think that's the first time ever I've gotten back a manuscript physically with edits on it like that in red pen, which I felt was, what's the teachers can't grade in red pen now because it makes people sad when they see red on paper.
Yeah, you kind of targeted.
I don't know what kind of printer I have though. I think I got just a black and white laser.
I finally did that. I went through lots of color printers, and now I have one of those. I'm much happy. Inkjet or whatever you call it, laser.
Lou says it's not the size of the whiteboard that matters, it's the motion of the ocean or the dry erase marker. Rick said red pen is hurtful. It's 100% hurtful, and I cried. And Kayleen says she must have liked it, and that remains to be seen. Hopefully she'll like the revisions that I did to it for sure. So yeah, I mean, planning a story, that's my bread and butter. I like doing it, whether it's on paper and pen or on the computer. But I like the idea of doing the outline and then fleshing it out as I go, and then having the fluidity to change as you're writing. And I know that we've talked about, I've talked about doing several different variations of writing a book on not on stream, but doing some videos of the actual process, and that might be fun to do some, like take a short story from beginning to end and like do some idea generation on a whiteboard, or even just have a stream where we're generating ideas for a short story and then writing those ideas out and going through the outline process of how we outline it and then put the story together. That might be kind of a fun project to do.
It could be fun. The trick, the sticking point is always you're going to get so invested in it that like, well, now this is a serious project and I want to make it a 9-book series. And
yeah,
but I've already put it out all over the internet for 2 years. But I guess probably nobody's going to steal your ideas because everybody's got their own ideas.
Right.
But who knows? It could be one of those hacks out there.
I don't know. There was a guy, Garrett Robinson, I think his name was. He was.
Well, the
Garrett,
self-publishing
Garrett
podcast guys did it.
Yeah. Well, no. I think he was doing like somehow he was involved with those guys. I'm not really sure.
He was. They kind of had a split at some point.
Yeah, but I started following him on. Maybe it was Twitch or YouTube. I can't remember, but he was doing writing streams where he would just set up and stream for hours, and he would go from beginning to end, like the process and all. He had a spoiler warning on screen or whatever, even though I don't think anybody but authors are going to be watching his stream at all.
No.
Anyway, that might be an interesting
we should do that
video
again,
to do.
Do another Dark Landing-esque outline thing, then one of us write it up.
I'd be down for that.
It'd be cool. We should do that.
Rick says, back when I was traditionally published, I had trying to get trad pubbed, I had a laser printer because this was long enough ago that agents didn't accept emailed copies.
Yeah, I submitted a lot of stuff. And I remember when it started to become hard to find the box to send it in, because I would look for it. Because when I first started, I would just go to the store and they had basically a manuscript box and it worked perfectly. And then sometime in the mid 90s, I couldn't find them anywhere. And it was like pulling teeth to find something to mail off a manuscript. And I'm sure that was just my own supply problem, but times were hard. And the postage on a 100,000 word novel, when you print it out double spaced Times New Roman with 1.5-inch margins, is a lot.
It's a lot,
especially when you're poor.
Tom says I spun up a 9-book book arc while going to the John, and I totally blame Josh for that. Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. What can I say?
You change it to going to the Josh.
Yeah, going to the.
I think John has served his time.
The John of Valor. Ooh, the Throne of Valor.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I think that we've kind of
kicked it around
enough. I do want to encourage everybody to at least try the flash fiction competition, even if you don't submit your story. At least try to do one.
Good idea.
What I found interesting about when I did it was the difference in writing muscle that it takes to do a short story and a novel are completely different. But when you talk about doing a story in 1,000 words, that's tough, and it's a lot tougher than you would think. And it doesn't take very long to do. You could do 1,000 words in a day. But writing a kind of a complete arc or a complete story is pretty difficult in 1,000 words. If I wasn't running it, I'd definitely do a story because I had like 8 stories come up just by looking at the concept art. But I definitely encourage everybody to at least write one. I mean, submit it. The people that are reading, the judges, are going to be doing kind of a 1-sentence, well, 2-sentence critique on each story that they read, good and bad. And then obviously, if it gets into the top 3, Tony Weisskopf will be taking a look at your writing. And so there's always that. And let me tell you, the odds of entering this competition and having Tony read your stuff, and the odds of just cold submitting to Bane and having Tony read your stuff, they're slightly different. I'm not going to tell you which one is better, but I can tell you they're slightly different.
Is a chance.
Oh yeah, we need that Ace, the Dumb and Dumber clip. So you're saying there's a chance? Oh, Leo says I want to send Ellen a fake manuscript in Sanskrit font after I take it, go hide in a bomb shelter. Yes. Yeah. I think you should do it in Comic Sans, but that's just me. And if you do it, I did not give you the idea. I'm just telling you this right now. I did not. I take no responsibility.
Yeah, we're not part of this.
I will have absolutely no say in. Dean says under 1,000 words is hard. It's true. It's true. And it's really easy to do a fragment of a story in 1,000 words.
Right.
But that's not the point of the competition. The point of the competition is do a whole, like, one complete story, and that's pretty tough. I have read a couple of the ones that have come in so far, and they're pretty well written stories. A couple of them came in the first like 48 hours the competition was open, and man, it was really cool to see those entries come in. Nagling says, I think you guys will laugh your tails off with my submission. You're all in it. It's a tongue-in-cheek, but man, Chuck the Wicked had to be stopped.
He does. That's actually true.
Yes, sir. Your name will be written in my blood inside the bomb shelter. Leo, don't throw me under the bus like that, man. Come on.
Josh made me do it. I didn't want to, but he said, you don't have a hair on your ass if you don't send this to Tony.
Guy says like papyrus, but less fancy, 100%. Honestly, don't do that. If you're going to send a manuscript to Ellen to have her edit, don't do that.
I saw, because they're talking in the chat that it was in Courier. Everything had to be in Courier for submissions.
Oh yeah, that's
but
true.
Nowadays everybody wants everything in Times New Roman generally. But it reminds me that if you've seen the meme recently about, if you're learn to type in the 80s, you don't have to add 2 spaces after the period.
Yes.
Well, I have lots of people I work with, and they do that, and it drives me insane.
Yeah, I saw it was
and I used to do it. I remember doing that when I started out. Tap on the space bar after every period.
Right. And it was a sheriff's deputy, a local sheriff's deputy that made that post. And I remember making the transition from double space to single space, and it took me a long time to stop my thumb from bink from doing that. But it saves so much time now. Like, it's crazy what you would think. Like, 2 spaces is not anything, but 1 space is like, it's like you don't even have to stop writing. You're just like, blah, blah, blah.
Well, yeah, but it can't. It depends on who's formatting it. It can seriously jack things up, and they have to go through and take that space out. Like
Rick says, I refuse to not add 2 spaces. Dean says, you guys are old. I resemble that remark, Dean, and I don't appreciate it at all. And coming from the newest intern, by the way, guys, if you didn't know, Dean Floyd is now running a show on Keystroke Medium called Under the Iceberg. It's a fantastic show. Scott and I and Chuck were on the first ever inaugural episode this last Saturday, and
Good times.
James S. Aaron is hosting with Dean, and fantastic time. I mean, fantastic show. They had great questions. It was a great conversation.
We went on a deep dive. It was fantastic.
It was really good. I enjoyed it. It's on the audio feed already. I think Kayleen had it up on the audio feed within like 30 minutes of the show going off air. So let's see. Now we have 5 shows from KSM weekly. We have live, we have coffee and concepts, we have the writer's journey, we've got the marathon author, we've got Under the Iceberg, and I think Kayleen is bringing back story time soon. But that is on the forefront of things. And
we talked about doing that with some Athon stories.
I don't know that I ever reached. I did reach out to Steve Kayleen, and he said it was good.
Yes, Rick Partlow is going to be on the next Under the Iceberg.
Oh, that's right.
Whatever.
And that's not this weekend, but next weekend. What day is that?
No clue. I'm calendar challenged.
Calendar. Google. The 22nd, is that right? Or the 29th? I think it's the 22nd. 29th, Dean says. 29th is going to be the next Under the Iceberg. Still need a Roku channel. Man, if I could...
I don't even know what that is.
If I could figure out how to do it, maybe.
I'm going to Google it. What is a Roku channel?
Leo says, the junior intern is rebelling. Crush him. Crush his soul. Raid his refrigerator and call him names. I think we can move Leo up in the barbarian category. Maybe he's the champion of the barbarian horde.
We're
Harold
getting
says set up
really
a
creative with
Flex,
our job titles nowadays.
Yeah, yeah, no joke. Up next, the procrastinating writer with T.S. Hoddle. That's true. I think everybody gets a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing that this morning. All right, guys. Well, we're going to call it there for today. We'll be back next week. Chuck should be back in the lineup next week, and hopefully we'll have a good guest for you guys.
I'm not sure we got the full consensus from our junior intern on whether or not we should end the show. So.
Sorry about that.
Okay with you, Dean?
Is it fine? Is it cool that we wrap up and kind of move on?
It says peace, homies. I think that's a yes. There you
go. Everybody, thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us on this great, fantastic Monday afternoon. If you're listening on the audio feed, don't forget you can come out and hang out with us on YouTube, www.youtube.com/keystroke-medium. Go on Facebook. You can find us there. I think we're on Twitter, but we're definitely on Instagram. You can find us in those places, or check out our website, keystroke-medium.com. Also, if you're in the market for coffee, keystroke-medium.com/coffee may or may not be giving away some coffee this week, next week on the show. I've got bags sitting right over in a box on my floor that I haven't opened yet. I've got 10 bags of coffee sitting over there, and one of them's itching to be given away. And maybe a mug as well. So we'll see how next week rolls around. It's we haven't done a giveaway in a while, so maybe we'll do one and have fun with it. Everybody, thank you guys for hanging out with us today. We'll be back next week. We're going to talk about some reading, we're going to talk about some writing, and of course everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium. Peace.